Past couple weeks, we've had a good thing going here. 6 baptisms in 4 weeks, not bad. If you want to keep that train going and are interested in being baptized or know someone who should be baptized, let us know. We'll keep it going. All good. It's worked perfectly for this Belonging Together series, as we've talked about the things that we bring that bond us together as a family of faith. And so we conclude the series today with a reading from the prophet Nehemiah in the 8th chapter. Let's listen again for a word from God to us this day. When the 7th month came, and the people of Israel settled into their towns, all the people gathered together in the area in front of the water gate. They asked Ezra the scribe to bring out the instruction scroll from Moses, according to which the Lord had instructed Israel. So on the first day of the 7th month, Ezra the priest brought the instruction before the assembly. This assembly was made up of men and women and anyone who could understand what they heard. Facing the area in front of the water gate, he read it aloud from early morning until the middle of the day. He read it in the presence of the men and the women and those who could understand. And everyone listened attentively to the instruction scroll. Standing above all the people, Ezra the scribe opened the scroll in the sight of all the people. And as he opened it, the people stood up. Then Ezra blessed the Lord, the great God, and all of the people answered, "Amen and amen," while they raised their hands. Then they bowed down and they worshiped the Lord with their faces to the ground. The Levites helped the people understand the instruction while the people remained in their places. They read aloud from the scroll the instruction from God, explaining and interpreting it so the people could understand what they heard. Then Nehemiah, the governor, Ezra, the priest, and the scribe, and the Levites who taught the people said to all the people, "This day is holy to the Lord your God. Do not mourn and do not weep." They said this to all the people because all the people wept when they heard the words of the instruction. And then Ezra said to them, "Go, eat rich food, and drink something sweet, and send portions of this to anyone who has nothing prepared." Friends, this too is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. A couple of weeks ago, there was a cartoon in the Wall Street Journal. It pictured a preacher standing in a pulpit wearing a baseball hat. The caption said, "And now we will have a moment of silence for whatever team you cheer for." That feels about right. I tell you about that cartoon to tell you this. Last Saturday, you all would have been proud. Like really proud. Because all of the years of indoctrination and all the subtle influence and all the years of gentle persuasion, it finally worked. Last Saturday, the Oklahoma Sooners took on the South Carolina Gamecocks. As many of you know, both Columbia, South Carolina, and Norman, Oklahoma are important places for our family. They're cities we love dearly. They're places that have shaped us and formed us and have made us into the people and the family that we are today. So as the sounds of Sandstorm reverberated off the walls of William Bryce Stadium and the Gamecock faithful twirled their towels in anticipation of the opening kickoff, Katie and I were torn. Who do we cheer for? We asked ourselves. But it wasn't just us. Friends from South Carolina had sent us text messages that day asking the very same question. Friends here in Norman asked us the same. But we never landed on a side. We just said, we hope it's a good game. And for the most part, it was a good game for the Sooners. But with 4 minutes left to play, and as John Mateer surprise punted the ball to the Gamecock goal line, it became abundantly clear which side our family had landed on. Anderson, our dear son, had lined up his fellow siblings in front of the television and began leading them in a chant that you may know. I'll be Anderson, y'all just be you. Boomer! Boomer! South Carolina! Sucks! Yeah! Boomer Sooner, South Carolina sucks. Katie and I laughed. We told them not to use that kind of language in church. Shame on you all, by the way. But then we began to think how ironic this was. This child was born on South Carolina soil. His hospital room overlooked the USC campus, and his first onesies were gamecock, garnet, and black. This was a child who was now cheering for his native land's demise underneath our mantle. But the truth is, Anderson doesn't remember much of where he came from. He doesn't know the difference between mustard-based barbecue sauce or vinegar-based barbecue sauce. He can't tell you where the upstate becomes the Midlands and the Midlands become the Low Country. And to him, words like Cadillac and Catawampus are as foreign as Japanese. But if you ask him, he can tell you what a Sooner is. And he can tell you about the palace on the prairie and what it looks like when the pride of Oklahoma marches down the field. His birth certificate says South Carolina. But that's not how he sees himself. That's one of the big issues that Ezra is running into in our reading this morning. Nearly 150 years have passed since Jeremiah sat and watched as Jerusalem's streets were reduced to rubble, and its gates ripped from their hinges, and the city walls split open, and the holy temple burned to the ground. Almost 2 centuries have passed since Babylonian soldiers salted the fields and poisoned the wells and bound every person of wealth and influence and power in chains and marched them into exile. King Nebuchadnezzar's great hope of inflicting generational devastation on the Israelites has now become realized, as 5 generations have come and gone since that day in 586 when Jerusalem fell. And in those years that passed, the whole world changed. The children of exile have long since died. The songs and stories of Zion have become fairy tales from another time. Hebrew is a language gone cold, and Israelite is a category of history and not identity. So when Ezra is given this command to take his people home, many of them thought they already were. They were Babylonians. They spoke the Babylonian language. They took on Babylonian names. They married into Babylonian families. And now they were being commanded to go back to a place they themselves had never been, back to a place of fairy tales, back to a place that had been forgotten. So what is Ezra supposed to say, standing there in front of the water gate, surrounded by a city still partially in ruins, whose skyline he has only seen traced in the dirt by his grandfather's hand? What is he supposed to say to a crowd of people whose idea of home has just been upended, whose children tug on their sleeves and ask questions about Jerusalem the way that our children might ask us about Narnia? What words can Ezra preach that will soothe their fears and quell their anxiety and build their trust in this place of faded memory? The truth is, he has no new words for them, only old words. words which survived through the flames of empire and through the pain of exile. Words that were memorized by their grandparents and their great-grandparents, and words which were now being passed on to them. Ezra steps to the platform and unrolls the scroll of Deuteronomy, calling to mind the memory of God making that first covenant with their grandparents and their great-grandparents. Ezra stands there and says to them, "Then the Lord your God will restore you as you were before. And your God will have compassion on you, gathering you up from all the nations where the Lord your God has scattered you. And God will bring you home to the land your ancestors possessed, and you will possess it again. And God will do good things for you, and God will multiply you, making you more numerous even than your ancestors." And as those ancient words echo through the square, something begins to shift among the people. It's a stirring memory that comes alive again, a sudden remembering of where they come from and who they are, and they start to sing again those old songs of Zion rising from the dust, and they start to speak again that sacred language of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And sure, the hymns are a bit out of tune and the words are a little mispronounced, but for the first time in 5 generations, Jerusalem feels like home. And so they cannot help but celebrate. What happens next is what very serious scholars of religion to consider to be an essential tradition of faith, an unavoidable practice for those who believe, a deeply sacred event known as the church potluck. Ezra sends everyone home. Prepare a feast, he says. Eat good food, drink good drinks, and then take some of that to your neighbors. Share the good things you have and celebrate together what God has done for us. Dr. Joyce Del Rosario is a professor at the Pacific School of Religion, but she's also known for coining the term potluck theology. In a recent article on the subject, she writes, "My personal theology was shaped by Filipino potlucks. After the church service, we'd pull out several long tables and then place on top of them dish after dish of someone's specialty. While we piled our plates high with white rice and pancit and adobo and pinkabet and babinga for dessert, we would find a spot to sit and settle into that styrofoam plate pile of joy. When I went to my first non-Filipino potluck, I was confused by the store-bought and easy-to-make casseroles on the table. It would be unheard of for any one of us to bring a bucket of KFC or a bag of Doritos to one of our potlucks. At the risk of disparaging my friends who grew up on KFC and Doritos," she writes, "the difference I saw in the potlucks I was used to was who was it about? The easy potlucks are about the individual provider. What's the easiest thing I can bring to the table while still contributing? The Filipino potlucks were about the whole community. How can I bless the people that will partake of what I have to offer? Potluck theology is about bringing our best to the table and partaking in each other's best offerings. And so there's a fullness when we share our best with one another. There's a joy when we know that what we bring to the table matters." I think that's what we've been talking about the past few weeks. That's what it means to belong together. It's about the people of God bringing what we have, our prayers, our time, our stories, and our gifts, and setting them on the table in an act of faith and gratitude. Not because it's the easiest thing to do, but because in the end, we bless each other who gather around that same table. I think that's also the invitation of stewardship, to bring our best, not out of an obligation, but out of a joy, where every dollar given and every prayer offered and every story told becomes part of something bigger than any single one of us. Because this sharing and this giving and this holy potluck, it's not just what we do together, but it's part of who we are together. A people gathered by grace, and a church built on generosity. It's a family of faith learning again and again that when we each bring our best to the table, we discover some amazing things about God and about ourselves. We discover what it means to belong together. So with hope and with joy and with gratitude, let us bring our best to God. In the name of the Creator, and the Christ, and the Spirit. Amen.